What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. This is the last playoff game we're going to preview this weekend. Rams at Lions, Sunday night, 8 o'clock, NBC. I think this is the game of the weekend. Obviously, you have the storylines that everyone and every sports talk show will be talking about. Stafford returning to Detroit to play the Lions in their first home playoff game, and I believe it's 30-something years. Then you have Goff going up against the Rams and his former team that he took to the Super Bowl. He did all this stuff with. Interesting matchup. The Rams started the year kind of up and down the first couple weeks, but they have been on a really solid roll the last handful of weeks, closed the season, including back-to-back one-point wins to close the season. Obviously, the last game against the 49ers, neither team starters were playing. Both teams had already locked up playoff spot, but kind of an interesting to look at there. But overall, we'll start with the Rams here. Solid year for Matthew Stafford. Thrown for almost 4,000 yards, 24 touchdowns, 11 picks. On the ground, Kyren Williams, 1,000-yard rusher, 1,144 yards on the ground with 12 touchdowns. Really solid there. But the story with the Rams, of course, is their receiving core. Rookie Puka Nacua set all kinds of rookie receiving records. Over 1,400, almost 1,500 yards receiving. 6 touchdowns. Cooper Kupp banged up for a good portion of the year, played 12 games, 737 for him with 5 touchdowns. Solid defense. I would say probably not as good a defense as they've had in the past, in past playoff runs. Obviously, they haven't made the playoffs since they won the Super Bowl 2 years ago. But this is definitely a team that's hot currently. So it'll be an interesting matchup for the Lions, especially given all the storylines coming in with off the field, talking head storylines going into this game. Then you look at the Lions, 12-5, winning the division. Started out with a huge 21-20 win on opening night, on ring and banner night for the Chiefs in Arrowhead. Given that, then they followed that up with a 37-31 home loss to the Seahawks, and everyone's like, oh man, is this the same old Lions? But no, then they turned it around, ran off 4 in a row, lost at the Ravens, who ended up finishing first in the AFC, so that's not a horrible loss. I guess the 38-6 score kind of is horrible there, but then the rest of the way was solid. I think the biggest downfall for them is their defense, specifically their secondary. They've had C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who they brought in from Philadelphia, but he's been banged up pretty much all year. They've had some young guys that have shown strides for them, but definitely, I think, need some growing. Their linebackers have been solid. Their defensive line has really been held up by Aiden Hutchinson, who had an incredible year for him. I hate saying that as a State fan, but he has really had an incredible year. But the other guys on the defensive line, they kind of need to step up if they want to do anything in the playoffs. And that's, I'm sure, something that they're probably going to look at in the offseason, to bring in another guy on that defensive line and address the secondary. Mainly, I think, is for them going into next year before they really can talk about, hey, let's talk about winning the NFC and competing for a Super Bowl. But looking at the Gamecast here, currently they have it as the Lions favored by 3, over under 51.5 points. ESPN Analytics puts it at 53.9% for the Lions to win. But I'm pretty sure, if I saw this stat correctly, I'm pretty sure most of the money is on the Rams. And it makes sense. It makes sense, let me tell you. Obviously, the Rams are a more experienced team. This Lions team that's up and coming. And I think they're going to kind of... I struggle to say rule, but I think they will be first or second with the Packers in the NFC North for the next, this next stretch of the NFL. NFL, obviously, you kind of look at 4 or 5 year stretches. I think this stretch is kind of where the Lions, maybe rattle off, they're capable of winning the next 5, but kind of the next 3 to 4 years, you expect it to be the Lions. With as well as the Packers are playing, obviously they've made the playoffs this year as well. Play in Dallas So we'll see if they can do there. Obviously, they have a young squad as well. Young receivers, Jaden Reed. Shout out to him as well. Has had an incredible rookie year. I believe top 10 in receiving touchdowns this year for him. And Jordan Love, young quarterback as well. See if he can continue to develop. But I think this is a time where the Lions can kind of, make a name for themselves consistently in the NFC the next, half decade or so. But just talking about this game, obviously I think there's a lot of emotion in this game. I think Ford Field is going to be a madhouse. I think it's really good for the city of Detroit. I think, obviously all the businesses having them a home playoff game. They should have two, given what happened in Dallas, but everyone knows that story. We don't need to talk about that. But I think this is going to be a tight game, and I'm going to roll with, don't get me wrong, I'm not a Lions fan, but I do love Jared Goff. But I can't not roll with Matthew Stafford here. Like, the stuff just adds up. The Rams are hot. Lions have been solid, the last, half of the season, last third of the season. We'll say they've been solid, but there's been signs like, hey, they're gettable. They're not how the Ravens have looked, or even, you can't even really say the 49ers, but, they're gettable. They're gettable for a team like the Rams, the style that the Rams play, the way they like to, air the football out. I think Puka and Cooper Kupp are going to have an incredible game. I think, especially talking with some, other Lions fans who have obviously watched them a lot closer, and what makes sense, given kind of the breakdown we briefly gave them, is can Kyren Williams get off? If Kyren Williams can get off and, kind of reach that benchmark 100 yards, and, maybe score a touchdown or two, I think that's what kind of flips the scripts for the Rams. If he can do that, then I think the Rams, definitely win this game. I think they can still win the game without Kyren Williams going off for 100-plus yards, but would definitely feel better about their outcome of winning this game if, he had a big game on the ground. But I think Puka and Cooper are going to have a big game either way. I just don't think the Detroit secondary can hold up with them. That being said, given Dan Campbell, I don't know why he's not up there for Coach of the Year. I get the Lions were kind of predicted to do this. They were kind of predicted to, given their close of the year last year, win the North and, have this good year, make the playoffs. But what he's done with this team, is frankly incredible. He should be, in my opinion, without a doubt, the Coach of the Year. I know obviously there's some other deserving guys as well, but in my opinion, I would give it to Dan Campbell with what he's done with this team from where they were just, say 2-3 short years ago. Now, that being said, I think this is going to be a shootout. That's why I said this is the game of the week. It's prime time on NBC, Sunday night for a reason. I think this is going to be a shootout. I think both quarterbacks are going to put up numbers, high 200s, in the 300s, passing the ball through the air. Right now, I'm rolling 35-31 Rams. Get it done in Detroit and move on. Matthew Stafford comes back to Ford Field, gets a win over his former team, and advances the Rams in the playoffs into the next round. Thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Peace out.